Space, the final frontier. I'm your host, at GamerGuy1991. Today we're taking a look at Star Trek Online. This is a game that is honestly too good to pass up for Star Trek fans, and I'm one of the biggest ones out there. This series is very near and dear to my heart, and when I knew there was a game that I could create my own captain, my own ship, and go out and experience the Star Trek galaxy, well, I had to play it. I had to experience it for myself. And to be honest, it's a game that I freaking love. I played this for hours upon hours on the Xbox One, and now I'm taking a look at it on the PS4. And I have to say, no matter what platform you're playing on, which the game is available on Xbox One, PS4, and PC, it's a spectacular adventure, especially for fans of the franchise. Because there's nowhere else that you can create your own ship and captain, your own team, and go out on adventures. And the missions in the game are quite spectacularly written. Some of them are even written by fans themselves, and a lot of it is voiced by cast from the shows. Not only that, the entire game is narrated by the late, great Leonard Nimoy. So this is a true treat for fans. When you're out in space, exploring and taking part in the game's missions, you are going to be thoroughly engrossed into the Star Trek universe. And that's something that any great licensed game should attempt to do. It should really make you feel like you are a part of that world. And there is no game that does it better than Star Trek Online. Now, unlike many other MMOs, you won't spend the majority of the game with other players unless you bring them with you into your game. Because most of the missions take place in instances, think of them like dungeons, okay? You go into these parts of the game, and it's just going to be populated by whoever you brought into that instance with you. So yes, that does mean the game can feel a tad lonely at times, but if you, like me, enjoy playing these games solo, it's not really that big a deal. Especially because you're going to find a group of players that you enjoy playing with when you visit the different Starfleet bases in the game. There are also many other instances where you'll be seeing other ships and other players that you can communicate with and of course form friendships and bonds to go on that Star Trek experience together. But even if you end up, say, just treating the game as a single-player experience, you're going to have a great time. Bear in mind that you are, of course, a Star Trek fan, because you really have to be familiar with the lore and world to get a lot of what's going on in the story and to even understand how to play certain missions. Now, that's not to say that the mission design is bad or even confusing, but it does rely on your knowledge of the Star Trek universe. So for those who are uninitiated, it may seem a tad bit confusing, and you may spend some time just reading through a lot of the in-game information to try to get a grasp on exactly what is going on and what the hell these people are talking about, and why these people look so freaking weird sometimes. But that's all part and parcel for the Star Trek universe, and it's what honestly makes it so fantastic. There's a lot of science fiction out there with deep lore, and it's all great, but few of them have, I guess, the time and all the years that Star Trek has had to build on this world. That's one of the things that makes Star Trek so special. It's been around for such a long time that there is a really lengthy history of not only the world, of the shows, of the movies. I mean, it's a lot. You've got the classic series, and you've got the classic series films, and you've got the Next Generation, then the Next Generation films, and you've got Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek Discovery, and then of course the new Star Trek films, which are not exactly reboots or remakes, but taking place in an alternate timeline. Is there anyone out there who's not a Star Trek fan still watching? Okay, just checking. If you're honestly still interested in the game and in this video after this point, then I have to take it that you're either a fan of Star Trek or want to be. I tell you, The best places to start: Star Trek the Classic Series and the Next Generation. You can even watch them at the same time, and it makes sense because these are episodic shows, and you're basically just gaining a knowledge of the universe. Those are my two favorites, with Deep Space Nine being a really, really close third. Honestly, they're all equal. Deep Space Nine, the Classic Series, and Next Generation, those are like my three all-time favorites. The others are great too, but those three are just incredibly special. Then, of course, you have the movies, and I'm getting way off track by this point. But yes, those two series are great starting points if you're trying to get information about the universe and you want to get invested in this game world. That's not to say there's not a ton of information within the actual game itself, but the shows and the movies are honestly a better starting point than the game is. This is really made for us die-hard fanatic fanboys, and for those of us that can even speak Klingon. I'm not one of them. I wish I was, to be quite honest. That'd be freaking awesome. Now, have all the non-Trek fans left yet? Okay, good. I was just trying to get them all out of here before we could actually, have fun. Because it's just about us. It's just about us. And remember, it's Trekkers, not Trekkie. Trekkie is derogatory at this point in the game. In any case, space battles is where Star Trek Online shines. I have never played a game that was space or flight combat or anything of the sort that I've had this much fun in. Now that could be because that I'm just not into those type of games, but it also has to do with how this game plays when it comes to the space combat. Maybe it's because phasers and photon torpedoes and force field. Yeah, I messed up pronunciation of photon torpedoes. That bothers me on a deep level. But we're going to move on before someone says, "Shut up, Wesley." In any case, yes, all the Star Trek tech and gear, it just seems like a perfect fit for the MMO framework. I mean, when you think about it, damage numbers, multipliers, all that jazz when it comes to how these games play, especially the tactical use of your abilities, it just seems like a natural fit for Star Trek. Even when you're playing on foot, with the standard phasers and the weapons of the game, it just makes sense. It's why so many MMOs try to be shooters and fail. It just doesn't work when you're picking up an assault rifle or something else. It feels so unnatural. But within the context of the Star Trek universe, all the game mechanics actually make sense, and instead of feeling dull or boring like it could in another game, it actually feels really satisfying and enjoyable. Again, if you're not a Star Trek fan, it probably will not carry the same weight. But that's probably because most of you out there have not been waiting to actually use a phaser in a video game the way a phaser is meant to be used. Phasers are not guns. Phasers are phasers. Now, while they don't exactly do the stun setting in the game, because let's face it, you have one primary attack, some of the phasers do have the stun setting, but it really doesn't change things too much with the character animations. But you're never said that you're explicitly killing anyone, so again, as a role-playing game, it's kind of up to you in your head. That's the beautiful part about a lot of these games, is how you can make your own stories. And I really love how your story weaves into the game narrative. And I'm not just talking about the stories you create in your head when you're playing through, but how they name your ships. You name your ship, and it spoke in the game's dialogue. Written, of course, not actually spoken, but close enough, right? And it just adds this layer that you really feel like you're a part of the Star Trek universe. When you go into the star bases and you see other ships out there and you can park yours and fly amongst them, it's incredible to just realize that you're amongst all the people that love Trek as much as you do. It feels like you've gone to a Star Trek convention and you get to live Star Trek. That's what Star Trek Online really feels like. Is it a great game? I can't tell you that, because I'm honestly way too biased. I love Star Trek. Star Trek is not just something that's special to me, as in it's a good show that I love to watch and I love the characters a lot, but it really means something to me. The way the narrative is not just about shooting everything in sight, but how it teaches a lot of really interesting life lessons. I was really hesitant to say lessons because that sounds so cliched, and a lot of people like to think of Star Trek as cliched because of that. But it does it in such an honest and deep way. And what I mean by deep is they really have thought their stories through. Even if it seems simplistic and cheesy on the surface, it's because they're trying to really convey these deep, complex themes to you. And again, if you're a Star Trek fan, you're going, fucking duh, we know that. But, you know, I'm just trying to explain to the non-fans that may have continued watching the video because they're really, really bored or just couldn't be bothered to click away, why I think so much of Star Trek, and why it would be horrible of me to say as a game Star Trek Online is a great game, because even if it is, I couldn't honestly tell you. I really can't, because I just love the universe so much that when I found a game that is functional, that is fun, and that makes sense on a basic mechanic and design level, I was jumping for joy. I put 80 to 90 hours on my Xbox One version of this game, and I'm now up to 60 on my PS4 version. I put a lot of hours into this game. And I always go by Captain Mercer, because I love the Orville. If you have not seen the Orville and you are a Star Trek fan, you're missing out. It is like The Next Generation, but done by Seth MacFarlane. It's not a straight parody, mind you. It really isn't. It feels like episodes of The Next Generation, just with a slightly different tone and a slightly different direction. And at the end of the day, though, it's still got that extreme, beautiful, warm heart that makes the Star Trek universe so fucking awesome. Yeah, I had to throw fuck in there because it literally is that and awesome. It's just brilliant. If you're not a Trek fan, go check Trek out. Really. Anyway, guys, it's been GamerGuy1991 gushing about Star Trek and Star Trek Online. I have had a phenomenal time. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.